Timberhawk Ride of Prey is the signature coaster at Wild Waves theme park in Washington. This was the prototype wood coaster from S&S, and it's a whole lot different than their later ones. Is that a good thing? Find out in this review of Timberhawk. Six Flags purchased Wild Waves in Enchanted Village in late 2000. The park was located in a highly populated metropolitan area, but the coaster lineup wasn't up to par with the other Six Flags parks. At the time of purchase, they only had two coasters, an Aero Looper named Wild Thing, and a Zamperla-powered coaster named Kitty Coaster. The chain immediately took action to fix that issue. 10 new rides were added in 2002, including Klondike Gold Rusher. This was a Zamperla Wild Mouse, giving the park a much-needed family coaster to complement their other two coasters. But they still need another headliner. That came in 2003. That was the year the park added Timberhawk Ride of Prey. This would be the first wood coaster built in the state of Washington in a long time. But the most curious part of the announcement was the manufacturer. It would be S&S Worldwide. This company was known for their drop towers, but they also started building coasters at the turn of the millennium. Their first two were extreme pneumatic launch coasters, but their third was a wood coaster. This seemed out of nowhere, but was a strategic addition to S&S's portfolio. Custom Coasters International, or CCI, had been the premier wood coaster manufacturer over the past decade, but they declared bankruptcy and closed in 2002, leaving a void in the industry. Many of CCI's designers went on to form the Gravity Group, but S&S hired one of their former ones in Dennis McNulty. He would design Timberhawk. S&S would only build 3 more wood coasters, all in the following year in 2004. These rides were instead designed by Alan Schilke, who would famously go on to design a majority of the coasters for Rocky Mountain Construction. I think these 3 had stronger layouts than Timberhawk. In particular, they had stronger, more plentiful airtime. But their more aggressive layouts led to them getting rougher over time. Meanwhile, Timberhawk still is reasonably smooth, especially if you avoid a wheel seat or the very back of a car. I really like the look of this ride. The ride is located on a hill in the back of the park. A large chunk of the layout is blocked by trees until you're right on top of it, but you can see the lift hill from the bottom of the park, making it appear far larger than it actually is. Then the far turnaround borders the parking lot to help build anticipation for your day. This isolated setting makes it a great night ride if you visit the park on a rare day when it's open late. There simply is not much light back there. The all-wood structure is perfect for this ride's name, and it blends in with the nearby trees. Then you also have some wooden sound barriers on the backside of the attraction because this ride gets darn close to a nearby neighborhood. Last but not least, you have a nice entrance area. You have a big archway with the ride's logo, and there's a wooden hawk statue too for good measure. There's no theming during the ride itself, but the station is all wood as well, and it fittingly has some logging gear on the walls. But there also oddly is some snowshoeing equipment too. Don't quite know how that ties in, but it does look nice. Depending when you visit, you may have to wait a while for this ride. Whenever I visited Wild Waves on a weekday, this ride was just a station wait. But the one time I visited this park on a Saturday, Timberhawk had most of its queue line filled. This took roughly an hour to get through. This was a combination of this being the most popular ride on the dry side by far, and its lower capacity. This line simply does not move fast. This is for 2 reasons. First, while this coaster is 2 trains, I have only ever seen one in use. The ride uses 3-bench PTC trains. Each train has 4 cars with 3 rows of 2, so the train holds a maximum of 24 riders. Second, dispatches take a while on this ride. The staff waits to open the air gates until the unload platform is completely clear. Then the restraint check process is tedious. Riders are secured by individual seatbelts and ratcheting lap bars. Pretty standard for a PTC train. Guests fasten their own seatbelts, but they are not allowed to pull down their own lap bar. Despite many warnings not to do so, people will do it. The employees are the ones who need to lower the lap bars after they've verified your belt is fastened. If anyone lowers their lap bar early, the car needs to be unlocked and the restraint check process needs to restart. As for which seat you want, I recommend trying both the front and back cars. The first drop is the single best element on the ride if you're in that back car, but the other elements ride a bit better up front. I split my rides evenly between these seats. I find the coaster tolerable in all rows. but you'll get some extra bumps in a wheel seat if you're sensitive to that. Once dispatched, you go right into the 75-foot or 23-meter tall lift hill. You don't get too much of a view due to the proximity of the trees though, but you're at the top fairly quickly. Once you crest the top, you navigate an elevated 270-degree turn. There's a thin gap in the tree line that allows you to look down in the park. Then comes the best element of the ride, the first drop. This is a straight drop that plunges through the lift structure. You have multiple head choppers on the way down, and if you're in the back car, you'll also get some good floater airtime. The pull-out twists left, and the sense of speed is enhanced by the sound barriers on both sides. But this part is pretty bumpy in a wheel seat. You then have a big camelback that subtly continues the leftward turn. In front, you get a decent floater pop over the top. But the resultant drop doesn't go all the way back down, so those in back are out of luck for negative Gs. Then comes the first turnaround. No airtime in or out of the element, but the turn itself has okay laterals to it. The train also shuffles on this turn, as with a few others later in the ride. I'm surprised the designers went with a 3-bench train as opposed to a 2-bench train, considering this ride has a handful of turns. The 2-bench trains are typically better for maneuverability. You then have a bunny hill high above the ground. This hugs the camelback, so it gradually turns right this time. It's unfortunately too high off the ground and too slow to offer airtime. You just get some bumps in the valley. You then rise upwards and drop back down to the ground. No airtime in the sizable drop, but you do get some laterals. They're most notable in the back when you're pulled down the drop because the plunge continues that rightward turn. Next is this L turn through the structure. You have great head choppers on this element, and it's the best airtime moment for those up front. You get a good pop going into the turn. Meanwhile, those in back get an okay pop on the resultant drop. Then comes the far turnaround. The entry and exit out of this element are excessively gradual, which mitigates much of the airtime. You only get a little pinch of it in the front car going into it, and the back car coming out of it. And this is the last airtime you'll get on the ride for anyone. Everyone gets mild sustained laterals at least on the turn. Timberhawk then jumps upwards and navigates an elevated S-bend. The first turn gives some okay laterals to the left. Then the second turn offers weak lats in the opposite direction. The train will jitter during this part though. The element ends with this awkward straightaway. Then you dip down and quickly rise back up to the brake run. No negative Gs, but the entry into the brakes quickly turns left, giving a solid lateral jolt for all. You then come to a stop. Then you slowly return to the station, ending the 2,600-foot or 792-meter long coaster. I've touched on the smoothness, which, again in short, is pretty good except for some of the early valleys in a turn or two. But what about the pacing? This is one of the cons with this coaster. I feel like it spends a bit too much time high off the ground. This impacts the speed, which also makes it harder for the coaster to deliver airtime. So what would I rate Timberhawk? I would give this wood coaster a 5 out of 10. This is a fun ride and definitely the best attraction at Wild Waves, but it's a mixed bag when compared to other woodies. I do like the placement, and it runs smoother than the other S&S wood coasters, but the forces are not what I expected. Both the front and back each have one really good airtime moment, but the other instances of negative Gs are weak to non-existent. The turns reliably offer some laterals at least, just don't expect them to be as extreme as CCI's coasters. So those are my thoughts on Timberhawk Ride of Prey. What are your thoughts on this wood coaster? Do you think it's the best ride at Wild Waves? Let me know down in the comments. If you enjoyed this review, I would appreciate it if you gave this video a like, and you considered subscribing, because there'll be a lot more roller coaster and amusement park videos here at Canopy Coaster. Thanks for watching.